Let's get more on this now. The deadline that the president is facing for the U.S. Embassy and its potential move to Jerusalem with our senior Washington correspondent, Dan Raviv. So, Dan, the waiver every 6 months, it's usually quite routine, but obviously not so much this time.
Well, there's some extra attention to this issue now because Trump, as a candidate, promised that he would move the embassy to recognize that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. By the way, I-24 News has checked, and previous presidents for more than 20 years often didn't do it on the precise date, so it didn't have to be signed May 31st, but we are expecting it. I spoke about all this with a senior scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, Norman Ornstein.
It was an ironclad campaign promise, but we've had many campaign promises that have been broken. And let's face it, we've had other presidential candidates and presidents who had pledged that they were going to move the embassy and then found out once they got there that it was a little more complicated and that the consequences could be pretty devastating in terms of stability or maybe even people's lives. So it's not a great shock that President Trump is postponing yet again the move of the embassy, but it's going to be a little embarrassing, and embarrassing especially for some of those American Jews who supported him based in part on this promise, who now have to worry a little bit that maybe there'll be other promises broken with regard to America's relations with Israel.
Norman, as you watched long distance, the president's visits to Saudi Arabia and Israel, did you feel that, in fact, he's taken a turn that wouldn't have been expected from his campaign rhetoric? He seems to be very friendly with Sunni Muslim leaders, for instance.
But of course, let's face it, this was not just about a complicated chess match, which is what we always think of when we refer to the Middle East. It's also about something much simpler with Donald Trump. Give him plaudits, say that he's the most wonderful person ever, give him gold medals, and then a great big arms sale and the promise of more Trump hotels, and you can get anything from him.
The Saudis seem to have concluded that.
The Saudis very cleverly figured out how to get to Donald Trump.
How about the Germans? The Chancellor Angela Merkel is involved in an election campaign right now, and one of her statements at an election rally was, "We can't depend on," well, it was clear she meant America and Great Britain. "We can't rely on them." The White House said that's good. The Europeans are learning to be more self-reliant. How do you see it?
I don't quite see it as a good news story. Our longtime alliances, including the relationships with NATO, and of course the core, Article 5, invoked only once of defending all of the members.
An attack on one nation is an attack on all.
Attack on one nation is an attack on all, and the one time it was evoked was by other members of NATO after 9/11.
Helping the U.S.
And so when Donald Trump, at the summit with an opportunity to reaffirm NATO, refused to do so, that sent shockwaves through most of the Europeans. And from the perspective of Angela Merkel, who really has been the leader in Europe, the Brexit combined with Donald Trump's very visible distaste for her, which was shown when she visited him at the White House, combined with the way he handled other leaders in Europe at the summit, is chilling. And for most of us who believe that these long-standing alliances and the close relationships that we've had with our NATO allies are a critical part of geopolitics, what Trump did in the summit could have been written as a playbook by Vladimir Putin.
Norman, is there a possibility that other Europeans also might be concerned about Germany feeling that it has to assert itself in the absence of the United States acting as kind of the friendly glue for all the European allies?
One of the things that concerns all of us who believe that these alliances, led by the United States for many decades, have been good for peace and stability in the world, is that in the absence of American leadership, Germany does step up, and the history of Europe is not a particularly pretty one when Germany takes that lead. Other nations are not going to be readily inclined to follow, and the kinds of tensions that in the past have led to war, but certainly lead to instability, are unsettling.
We don't mean to conjure up awful memories of a vicious Germany brutalizing Europe. Those days are, we think, long gone. But a healthy Europe with a strong alliance with the U.S. has been a guarantor of peace and prosperity. Michelle?
All right, Dan Raviv, thank you so much.